It's my pleasure today to introduce one of our own, Jim Alafat. Jim's been an entrepreneur at heart, starting his first business at age 12. He's worked and consulted in various industries, including restaurants, retail, resort operations, scuba operations, mortgage companies, and systems. He's worked in the financial service industry and held numerous licenses. He's a certified budget counselor and commercial lending processor, which provides great value and insight and value to his consulting clients. He also works at the Blackstone Launchpad at UCF down through the thing. He's going to talk today about identity theft.
So yeah, check and see if you guys have been hacked. And we'll talk a little bit more about why having a hacked email, a lot of us think that's not a big deal. We're going to talk about that a little bit. But I'll share with you my background and what got me interested in helping people with identity theft. When I first moved to Florida at the end of '88, I'd been here about 9 months, and I was going to buy Wise. I needed to replace my VCR. So I'm basically aging myself there, and I wanted one of those nice stereo surround sound things. And I decided on my way there, hey, I just pulled off my car. I think I had one credit card at the time. I don't have much credit. I want to build my credit. So I'd apply to finance it when I got there. Filled out the application. The guy came back 15 minutes later and goes, I'm sorry, Mr. Alafat, but we can't approve your credit application. I said, why not? He said, you can't afford a $350,000 mortgage. How do you pay for a $400 VCR? I said, I don't have a $350,000 mortgage. He said, oh, your credit report says you do. But a $350,000 mortgage is $25,000 car loan and a no credit limit American Express card. I was living life large and I didn't even know it. So that took me about a year and a half to get that straightened out. It was in the infancy of identity theft, and it cost me about $900 out of my pocket. And those numbers have multiplied crazily now today. So what we want to talk about is understanding that your digital DNA, it has been hacked, whether you want to believe that or not, your information is out there. And we're going to talk a little bit about some myths and reality of identity theft. First, let's understand what exactly is identity theft. Identity theft is when somebody takes your personal information, personal identifying information, your birthday, social security number, and things like that, and they use it as if it was you. They create bank accounts, they open credit card accounts, they buy houses. I've had friends of mine that had gone through and had their kids checked. Their kid, at his oldest son at 15 years old, was getting ready to close on a house in Rochester, New York. And Scott lives here. So it's something that happens, and we'll talk more about the kids why. But let me share with you what this all means. So a gentleman by the name of Bo Carlisle was on his way home from a business meeting one evening. He got pulled over because there was a taillight out. Turns out he knew the officer. They were friends from church. The officer was going to let him go, just get it fixed. And what he did was he said, as a formality, I need to run your driver's license. When he came back to the car, he looked at Bo and he said, you have 47 felony warrants and 82 misdemeanor warrants against you. Okay, that's a problem for somebody. So what did he do? He looked at his friend and he said, do I get my phone call? And his friend said, if you can get somebody on the phone at this time of night, I'll get my shift commander out of bed and I'll have him come down here. So he made the phone call, and they ended up finding out that his license and these warrants were in 6 different states: Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Oregon, and Washington State. They ultimately found out that, and took about 2 weeks. No, I'll finish telling you. So anyway, so let's talk about the common types of identity theft. Most people think of, what do you think of with identity theft? It's credit related. Somebody stole my credit card, right? Believe it or not, that's bank fraud. If somebody steals your credit card, that's not even identity theft. Again, identity theft is when they create a persona using your information. So there's driver's license fraud. People need to identify themselves. They can't get a license. They're here illegally, they're criminal, whatever reason. There's also social security fraud. People will get your information, file false tax returns. I'm sure you guys all know somebody like that, where they had to get a special PIN and an identification number from the IRS. It's a pain in the butt, but they do it. Medical records is one of the biggest things that's going on out there. And then, of course, there's criminal and character fraud. Believe it or not, when criminals get your identity, and if it's like organized crime that's buying your information, criminals don't carry a driver's license with them. What they'll do is they'll memorize what's on your driver's license, and they will give the officer your name, your address, and your birthday. And then when they don't show up to court, who's the police coming after? You. That's the problem. There's also financial fraud. Now, where it's financial fraud, if somebody takes your information and opens up bank accounts for things in your name, that's identity theft, financial fraud, and then child identity theft. That's one of the fastest growing areas of identity theft right now, because children from birth until 18 years old minimum don't have a credit score. Residential credit, personal credit, it is systematic when it happens, but you can't apply for credit till you're 18. So that can be a challenge. It's actually 7% of all newborns that leave the hospital, but their identity has already been stolen when they leave the hospital. So it's a challenge to do that. So let's talk about first understanding too, how this information is shared and how it's done. So you need to understand how the internet works. So we're all familiar with the surface web. We're all familiar with the Google, the Yahoo, the Bing, and all of that stuff out there. That's only about 5% of the entire the internet that we use. I've had it asked to me, somebody said, okay, how big really is this whole thing? Well, the surface, if you think of the biggest ocean liner is floating around on the ocean, the internet, the deep web and the dark web are the oceans that it travels on. That's how big they are. The deep web itself, we use in some circumstances, but it's more of an encrypted, specialized area where they'll keep like bank records, legal documents, and things that you need to keep safe. But then there's the dark web. The dark web was actually created by DARPA for the federal government, for the military. And what it does is it is a way that people can communicate. You have to use what's called a Tor browser, or you might hear it called an onion browser, and it's not .com, it's .onion. And it is a way that reaches out to multiple different devices all at the same time. So, you know, when you see on those TV shows where, oh, well, we're going to track this guy down and he bounces around here to here to here, but it's only going to one point, that's not exactly true. They can't pinpoint where that person is communicating from. And the reason they did that was they have missionaries that are out there in certain countries. There's like 51 countries that missionaries aren't supposed to be allowed, and they have to communicate. Or when they're running secret operations, they go through the dark web. So that's how they communicate. And it really is truly a playground for criminals. This is just an idea of what some of the things that are out there sell for. You know, for $2 to $25 for Social Security cards to over $1,000 for a passport. Even your social media accounts, Facebook, LinkedIn, things like that, can go for as much as $80 on the internet, on the dark web. And all of this stuff is being sold every day out there. The thing that's amazing, though, is you have 68% of people that when they find out that a company has been hacked, they will not go back and do business with that company until they know the system has been fixed. Another 23% could care less, they'll go anyway, but there's 10% of people that will never come back. So if you ever have a hack situation in your business and you wonder how come these people aren't coming back, that's why. It's not that they don't trust you, it's the fact that the system has been stolen. And this is an actual page from a fraudulent seller in Australia that is selling credit card information. And the thing that I love about it that's so funny is he has a guarantee at the bottom that says, oh, this stuff is good. If you don't like it, it's not good. Come on, I'll give you some more. Take it for a test drive. And you'll also notice in the bottom left-hand corner, all the different types of things that they have out there for fraud and other things that people can buy and click on. It's a marketplace. So it's not just credit related. There's all sorts of things. And how are thieves getting our information? Well, because we tend to give it to them without even thinking about it. What's on the back of your car or on the vehicle? Well, you've got, here's my kids, they go to this school. I'm a gun owner, I'm an NRA activist. I love having guns at my house. Hey, I'm also a dog lover. I got a small little dog. You don't have to worry about it if you come break into my house. Oh, and by the way, I'm an Army spouse. So my spouse is gone a lot of times, so don't worry about it. Or I've got a baby on board. So my hands are going to be tied up when I have to go shopping at the mall. So I'm an easy target when you come back out. And you see these things on the news where people are getting attacked in the mall. I don't know why. Because people are targeting them. They're finding them and they're seeing that this happens. Or the motorcycle thing. Here, we have toys. We have great toys at our house. Come steal them. Or this is where I work. This is where I live. So we're giving that information away. How many times have we just innocently answered some of the questionnaires that are on Facebook that come out? Guys, those are being set up by thieves, by people that are doing this. Hey, do you remember what this is? Yeah, I can tell you what that is. That's a, stick shift on a column type of a car. You're dating yourself. You're giving them an idea of when you were there, when this was happening. They're out fishing and looking for information. So let's talk about that email. Somebody steals your email. These are all different types of information that they can glean from that email from you. They can find out where exactly find out privacy information about you. They can find out different stuff about it, real estate, things that you're doing maybe financially. They can get your passwords. They can find out where you're working. So it's really important. They can access your computer. So what's that worth to them? If they get into your computer, that's got everything. And they do it very simply by doing things like this. A few years ago, I had paid my ePass account. Probably 5-6 days later, I get this notice, but I didn't catch that it said Z Pass. And I just saw it come in and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, why are they sending this? I've already paid it. This is all taken care of. And here, click this to rectify your account. So all I wanted to do is to make sure that my payment registered. I click the link and nothing happens. I'm like, click, and then it hit me. Oh shit. And it loaded a keylogger and who knows what else. Literally trashed my entire desktop computer. I had to buy a new system. Pain in the butt. And the other problem you have to worry about is if you don't have your files and your information backed up in the cloud or backed up on a mobile disk somewhere, you can't transfer that information because you don't know where the stuff for that keylogger or the stuff that they put on your computer. How much information? What could that cost you as a business owner if that happens? And now ransomware is a big thing. So we have to be careful with how we're collecting our stuff. I got a phone call the other day from this lady, sounded official. Hey, this is so-and-so from Amazon. We just want to let you know that somebody's using your name and creating some false accounts here. And I was sitting in front of my computer. I popped open my Amazon account, checked no activity on this account for the last 90 days. I'm like, okay, great. So I'm starting to get suspicious. So I start dating her along and I finally asked her, I said, so what do you need from me? I didn't ask you for any personal information, did I? I said, no, that's what I want to find out. What do you want? She goes, well, we need to send a letter to your bank. And then she starts listing off all of these banks that supposedly this person that was impersonating me had used. Now, not one of my banks was on there. I bank with 3 different banks and not one of them was on there. So I said that to her, I go, all those banks you listed don't affect me because my account, my bank's not on there. Click. And they're getting real crafty at those kind of things. So we really have to be careful. And let's take a look at other ways they're getting our information. These are recent security hacks and security breaches that have happened. And we know all of these companies, but the scariest one is that company called MoveIt, up in the top right. MoveIt is actually a file transfer tool that's used primarily for government, schools, secure installations. When they hacked into MoveIt, when they hacked in and breached MoveIt, not only did it affect that company, but it affects over 200 organizations that they were working with. Every school in the state, in the country, they believe was hacked. So they're going after our kids' information, our grandkids' information. And all of multiple departments in the government were hacked and breached as a result of going through one company like that. That's like the mother lode, I guess you would call it, right? And Twitter was hacked a number of years ago, over 200 million emails. Well, guess what? Those emails are still making the circulation and they're still being sold at $2 a pop out on the deep web. The other thing that you need to be aware of is, remember about 4 years ago when Equifax had over 150 million people get hit? That information is making the rounds. Because what thieves do is they'll let it sit on the bookshelf. And then what will end up happening is when they get ready to use it 2, 3, 4 years later, after everybody says, okay, nothing's happened, guess what? It starts rearing its ugly head. They'll test to see, hey, is this credit card still active? They'll put out maybe like $1 charge on that credit card. And people look at that and they don't think anything of it if they even look at their bank statements or their credit card statements. That's a huge mistake most people don't do. They don't check their statements. You need to check. I had a friend of mine that said, yeah, I got hacked. I don't worry about it. The thief's spending less than my wife does every month. So really, when you think about credit monitoring really does nothing to protect people from identity theft. It's only about 12% of the problem. And because of misinformation that's out there, people don't know any better. They're using credit systems. The banks are, hey, get this monitored. Well, one of the banks I have here, pay $6 a month for this. And they basically strong arm you into getting their service for the $6 or whatever it is. I'm like, okay, they send you your credit score. Oh, your credit went up, your credit went down. All right, well, that's great. What about the other stuff we talked about? What about my medical information? What about my driver's license and stuff? Just think about this. Is there anybody in here who's like a real estate or does mortgage? I know Eddie, right? Okay. So answer this question for me. On a credit report, if somebody got a speeding ticket and they didn't show up to court and there's a bench warrant issued for them, is that bench warrant going to show up on that credit report? No, it doesn't. Somebody steals your passport. Somebody steals your medical records and uses it. I had a friend of mine who got a bill not too long ago from a hospital out in California that he needed to pay for his leg amputation. He looks at me and goes, I'm not missing anything. He sends them pictures, sends them a letter and says, what's up? They were trying to get him to pay it. So it's important to really understand that if you want to use a service or have something, make sure you get something that's robust. And let me give you basically a case study. This was actually written in Fraud Magazine. Fraud Magazine's a publication that I get. It's what all the licensed investigators, all the forensic auditors and those people, it's got some amazing stories in there. But what happened was the whole point of this was a gentleman by the name of Sam. His dad was a very high net worth individual. He got a phone call from a department store one day. Hey, just want to let you know there's a problem with this credit card that you have here. He said, well, I don't have a credit card there. I don't even do business in that store. Well, you got to take care of this. So what he did was he hired we call her Sally, who was the CPA for one of his dad's companies. Well, she had no investigatory experience. All she knew what to do was, hey, I'm going to go check. I'm going to inquire with the credit bureaus. What was she doing? She was notifying the thieves because the thieves had already called the credit bureaus. They had already changed information on the credit bureaus. And they were getting notified every time she was trying to do something. And she'd go to react, and the thieves were already gone. They were 1 or 2 steps ahead of her already. So it's a major issue when that kind of thing happens. So he ended up having to hire a company to come in and do that for him. And those guys are not cheap to do that. What people don't understand too is what criminals do, hackers do. They're going to, we all have, like we mentioned, birthday, social security and number and stuff, right? Those things never change. Well, guess what? Until they call up the credit bureaus and they say, hey, my name's Jeff Brunel. This is my birthday. And here's my information. And they verify who you are. And then what ends up happening? They go, listen, I was going through my credit file and I noticed that you got my birthday wrong. The year's wrong, or the day's wrong. Guess what? The second they change your credit file, you no longer have access to your credit file. And it happens all the time. So it's a real major problem. And then they also will change the victim's name a lot of times. They might change the spelling of it, might add a different middle name. We all know the credit bureaus aren't perfect. They make mistakes, right? So in this article, it went on to say that any of us can become victims of identity fraud, but it's unacceptable that victims have to carry that burden to prove that we're innocent. Another thing that the article went on to say was victims spend years attempting to recover from these crimes and often are continually re-victimized as their personal information is circulated among thieves. One of the things that they will do is if they have a victim that they come in and they got them with a scam and they got them good. And the sad thing is most of the time victims don't report it because they don't want to be embarrassed. But then they will take that person's name and information and they'll put it into another, like a victim's pool. Hey, this is what we got this guy with, and here's what he fell for. And they'll sell that information, and they're taken again. The dark web is a thief's playground. Personal information is available for thieves to buy, sell, and trade. And these are all things that most of this information credit bureaus don't monitor. So why pay for something that doesn't give you the protection that you need? And that's just because people are misinformed and they don't know. Another thing that the article says is, furthermore, the authorities probably won't have the resources to investigate and prosecute. Who are you going to report to the police? My friend Susan had a problem. She went to the police to make a report. The desk sergeant looked at her and goes, who are we going to put a warrant out for? Who are we going to investigate? It was you who committed these crimes. Did you ever think that if you're a licensed professional, so real estate guys, doctors, attorneys, mortgage brokers, did you ever think that if you have a license and your information gets hacked and something like this happens to you, could that prevent you from working? Could they buy your license till you can prove your innocence? Yeah. Because you have to remember and understand, identity theft is the only crime where the victim is considered guilty and you have to prove you are innocent. That's why over 70% of all identity theft issues require some form of legal assistance. You need to go in and validate who you are. The attorneys need to write letters to the credit bureaus or to whoever's reporting and do all of these things that they need to do for you. And then now what's coming down the pike is called synthetic identity theft. So what the thieves are doing is they're taking an actual social security number, they're creating a fictitious name, and then they're creating a different birthday and attaching it to the social. So now they're taking that information, they're going out and they're creating some false credit files, maybe buy furniture or something where they know they can get approved, because here, buy here, pay here type of thing. And within 10 days, they've got a credit file and they're starting to operate in that manner. And that's being sold. But think about this for a second. If you're a business owner and you have employees that are going through stuff like this, could that kind of upset the apple cart at the business? Heck yeah. You know, when you look at some of the employment issues, financial stress is the biggest thing. We all know stress medically causes the most problems for people out there, and especially employees, and it increases their health issues. Over 80% of full-time employees experience some kind of financial stress, and 47% can't even afford a $400 problem. They got a dental problem, they need to see the doctor, the car broke down, it needs to be fixed, the refrigerator went out. They can't afford it. How can they help them when they get into these kind of problems? Or what they'll end up doing is you'll find that they're trying to take care of their problems on your time, on the company's time. You'll find that 34% of employees are spending 2 to 3 hours a week taking care of personal issues. What does that translate into money? How much do you pay them an hour? But the average is about $1,500 a year per employee. You got 10 employees, that's $15,000 a year your company is bleeding because of financial issues that could be taken care of by using the right type of identity theft service for these guys. And so things that you want to look for when you're looking for a good service. Make sure you've got something that monitors and alerts you when you're dealing with issues, the things that you saw on that other slide, plus things like this. Make sure that they can help with your privacy and your reputation management. As an employer, or if maybe you're like a contractor and you're going to look to work for a job, the people that you want to work for, where are they going to go to find out about you? They're going to search you up on Facebook. They're going to search you up on LinkedIn. If you've got stuff that's not flattering to you on Facebook, sorry, we don't want to hire this guy. So make sure you have a service that can monitor those things and help you with that. Make sure you've got something with credit counseling and help people with education. Make sure they can help with your privacy management. If you ever had a time when you've been sitting down and talking to somebody about dog food and you get on your computer and the next thing you know, dog food ads are popping up? Guys, if it has a microphone or a camera on it, they can hear you, they can see you. And then another thing you want to make sure of, which is really critical, so many services out there. We have FCRA certified people. Fair Credit Reporting Act is about an hour and a half online course that costs about $125. What do they know about fixing your credit? All they're learning is, well, this is misreporting and here's your rights under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. You need to make sure when you have a service that you're using somebody that has actual licensed private investigators, real people that are licensed and credentialed, that require a power of attorney that you have to sign for those items to get fixed. Because only an attorney, an investigator with a power of attorney, or you can access your credit file. And if you don't have those, and if you have a credit service and you call them and say, hey, what can I do? They're going to tell you, sorry. And make sure that the plan that you have is a primary coverage, okay? So make sure that it's not secondary. There are plans out there, which means if you have something on your home insurance that's like a reimbursement, typically to about $25,000, you have to use that first before this kicks in. So why are you paying for this? Get something that's primary. So with that, I want to thank you. How many of you, oh, and also one last thing, make sure too that it's something that covers your whole family. One flat fee covers the whole family. You don't have to pay extra for your spouse and for your kids. So how many of you took a look at Have I Been Pawned and had an email that's been gone? Okay, all of us. So the first thing you need to do is change your password. Make sure you do that right away. When you use passwords, start with a symbol. Their crackers don't have a problem with that. And make sure you have at least 12 characters. Okay? So that's my tip of the day, and I hope that added some value for you guys.
Thank you, Tim. Rich, do we have time for questions? I gotta get on the other side of the room. You had a hand up. Yeah, okay. Thanks for a great presentation, Jim.
Thank you.
Quick question. I have credit monitoring through my bank, and some time ago they informed me that my social security number is on the dark web. There was a breach from T-Mobile from some 20 years ago.
Right.
I did all that was suggested to do, but what would you do to prevent any serious damage?
Well, you have to make sure that with some form of an identity theft protection, that you have something that monitors. And you can monitor your social. If it's ever used for anything, you can also put credit holds and other things on your credit report. Because if people are using your credit card or your social, they're going through typically credit related items or fraud related items in some cases for taxes.
Have you been to the dark web? And if so, how do you get there?
Personally, I have been on the dark web. I have not been on the deep web. The deep web is totally different animal, and I would kind of be afraid if I went to it that who knows what's going to show up on your computer. Who knows? You have to get a Tor, what's called a Tor browser, Tor browser. It's just you can look them up. They will download them onto your computer, and when you go to a site, it's .onion. To whatever the site is. You can look up anything there, sex slaves. I mean, seriously, anything. The deep web. Thank you very much.